Welcome to the Ignite You podcast.
We're two bros journey into all things spirituality and human transformation.
Let's get it. Cheers. Welcome to the Ignite You podcast, everybody. My name's Cam McDougall.
My name's Ryan Miller.
And today, we are here to talk about consciously not giving a
fuck.
Oh, that's pretty aggressive.
I know. I kind of
You went for
quickly
it.
with it.
Like you went
like
for
I knew
it.
what you were gonna say.
Oh, cool.
Well, I didn't really care. I didn't really give a fuck.
You didn't give a fuck. He didn't care that he might startle you. He didn't care that he might startle me. But those would have been our triggers, not Ryan's. Ryan's truth was that he wanted to say fuck.
Just like that.
Just cutting it in deep.
Yep.
And all humor aside, as always, we had downloads. We had human experiences. Me particularly, I say we because it feels weird if I just start talking about myself and I leave you out.
I've had experiences too.
You have. You're having one.
Things.
You're having one right now.
Yeah.
In this very moment, you are having an experience.
It's amazing.
It's shared.
It's shared. And Cam had a really cool experience come up this morning specifically. And we love to keep these podcasts on theme with what's real in our lives, what our truth is whenever we shoot these podcasts, because we feel like it's felt on a deeper level. It can resonate on a deeper level, and we can bring forward a new layer of truth. So, dude, what happened this morning? What's been happening?
What's been happening?
What's popping?
What's popping off in the life of Cam?
Yeah.
So this morning, I was in meditation. I was checking in.
Wow, you meditate.
I do. Nice. So spiritual of me.
That's cool.
And I was really tuning into this aspect of relationship for me. Over the years, I have become very open, very heart-centered, and also very connected to my partners, friends, also clients. It's really, I've really opened up to bringing people in on a very deep level, which for many years was something that I could never, ever even contemplate doing. It's been a beautiful experience, except now I'm starting to see some of the shadow sides come up, which are that I take people's shit on. And because I am opening up and letting people in a beautiful way, I have started to bring people's stuff on, their emotions, their challenges, the things they're going through. And because I have a big heart and I want to support the people that I love, I will sacrifice myself, my being, my energy to make sure that they feel okay. This is a beautiful thing when done in short, incremental, intentional moments, not in every single day of my life. And so this morning, as I tuned in, particularly to relationships, I've had this aversion to really going deep into relationship because I feel like I haven't found the right person that can hold me or be with me the way that I want to be held. So I pull back. I withdraw because I feel like, ooh, this person has too much stuff that I don't want in my life. That then isolates me. I go back to my world. It's very easy to just operate from my energetic expression if I'm alone in this experience or if I'm, by myself or single, which at face value, I was kind of like, no, my truth is just not to be with this person. My truth is just not to be affected by this stuff. My truth is just to be alone, and I'm supposed to be alone. And that was a story that I still am working through. But when I tune into that, it's not that. It's not run from situations when they get challenging so that you can be by yourself, because it's really easy to be by myself. It's learn to be in relation, learn to be around people and still act from my truth, my power, and consciously not give a fuck about what they're going through and live my life. And hope that that person is ultimately going to complement my life somehow, or find that my life complements theirs somehow, but not take their life stuff and make it mine. Live from my energy, my cultivation, my being.
Yes.
And this was a juicy realization this morning, because it was now this part of me is invited to tighten up my energy so much more and really act from a place of what I want. Not from selfishness, but from self-love, boundary, and honoring my truth.
Yes. And even on that, I don't feel that being selfish is a bad thing, interestingly enough. But with that, what I can say and what I notice in you, and for all humans, if we can fill our own cup, and this is a classic saying, but if you can fill your own cup, you actually have something to give. If you do not fill your own cup, you don't have anything to give. Why are you trying to give? So for that example of you doing that in the relationship, yes, you're prioritizing yourself first, and you have more love to give to this other person because you're doing that.
Exactly.
And I see that, and I know that, and I feel that. And you invite me into that by showing me that. And it's really fucking beautiful. I'm actually an advocate of being, you can call self-full, right? Because self-ish feels kind of weird, but being
We don't like that
a full-on experience of yourself and prioritizing yourself. And putting that there, because for me, for so long, I put it there.
Right there. Corner of the table.
On the corner
Put
of the table.
Right there.
Exactly. Because for me, for so long, being a people pleaser, it's so easy to give all my energy, give all my things away, and that's how I think I'm being fulfilled. It's like, oh no, I love to give. I do.
Yes.
So that's what fills me up. But then when I really got to my truth, I was like, actually, it doesn't. I'll feel drained a lot of the times if I just continuously do that. And you named a beautiful thing, which is getting to the real truth. Because it seemed you had an identification of, oh, if I do this and I just give time for myself, that's what really matters here. It's this person that's off. That's what it is. That's the truth. Done. But in reality, it was you diving deeper into yourself and probably noticing that that decision was coming from fear. And that's what we're talking about today as well, is either acting from fear or from love. We're always either acting from one of those places. So in that, you were making that decision, being like, oh, that's actually from fear. If I was acting from love, I would show up in this connection.
Totally.
And then show up for myself first.
Yep. 100%. And that's really what it came down to for me, is running was fear.
Yeah.
Running is, I can't let this person in because they're fucking with my shit. Right? That's this getaway. It's this, I spend so much time on my energy. I spend so much time on me. Get away from that. That's me not in my power. That's me afraid that somebody else is infringing on my power. And so we really wanted to bring this up today to talk about it, because there's an element of consciously not giving a fuck that we have to bring into so much of this. And to define consciously not giving a fuck, it's elaborating on what Ryan just said. It's choosing self from a place of love, not fear, independent of what that is going to do to others around you. It's acting solely from your truth, acting solely from love in your heart for oneself, and really not letting other people's lives, triggers, challenges dictate anything about that action, anything about that decision.
Yeah. And it sounds great when you say it, you know? Sounds like, oh yeah, I want that. I'll take one of those, please.
Sign me up.
But the reality is it something that's trained, and the key word that Cam's using is truth. Getting to your truth. And we believe that to identify, to really get to your truth, it's a trained experience. And we'll talk more about how we talk about navigating that. We'll go into that later on how you can start cultivating that and getting closer to that. And Cam and I still are navigating these waters of continuously, wait, is that my truth? Wait, is this acting from my highest self? Is this actually me tuning in, or am I being dictated by something that somebody else told me, or by somebody else's action here? Am I really acting from that true space? And a good marker, a fun marker, and one that I use recently, and Cam's big on this as well, that's very real, is if you're triggering people around you. Because your truth will trigger. And if you're really in your truth, you're going to trigger some people. And we believe that to be true. Like, take that as a bold statement, but I believe that is fact. 100%. If you're in your truth, you will trigger some people.
And also in your power.
Exactly. Which
comes hand in hand.
In that truth. Yeah. And I've only recently just been in this space. The past couple of years, like just really starting to navigate this space and like, it feels weird to do it, and then trigger some people around me. So I think it's a beautiful practice, and it can be challenging, but when you have the communication around it, it can be a beautiful expansion for so many people.
Definitely. I could not agree more. And to ignite your soul, you have to be in your truth. I always think about business or the mission or even in relationship where if you are not showing up in a powerful way, showing up in a truthful way, you're limiting the energy that can come through for whatever that is. So if I'm not showing up in my truth, if I'm not showing up in my power and taking radical ownership over my truth and my power, I am not going to reach the levels of success that I would like. I'm not going to reach the levels of financial abundance I would like. I'm not going to cultivate the deep connection that I would like because there's a part of me that I'm holding back and not expressing to the world, which ultimately subconsciously says that I am either ashamed or insecure about it. So let's use a relationship as an example. Let's use sex as an example. If I'm not expressing my truth on what my desires and kinks are, I'm hiding that because I might think that my partner might think they're weird. That is going to subconsciously program me to believe that I am weird. I am wrong. If I don't express myself in business and just let the world know how I feel, what I believe in, and the mission that I'm cultivating because I'm afraid that it might fall on deaf ears, I'm limiting the amount of energy I can put in. I'm limiting the amount I'm going to show up. I'm limiting the power, the energy, all these things that I'm going to bring to the table, which will dim my business success. So our truth is the gateway. Our truth is where our power is. And if we are putting our power, i.e. our truth, into the triggers and opinions of others, we are going to limit our full expression, dim our lights, and ultimately never truly transform and realize our highest potential. And I'm saying this with so much passion right now because I had this realization this morning. And yes, I show up powerfully for my mission, for my people, and I still carry a lot of insecurities. So every time we come up against these ceilings of evolution, we got to move through them. We got to shift them. We got to vocalize them, articulate them. And so when I had this realization this morning and my partner was here, I sat down and I said, hey, I had this realization today. I'm taking your shit on. And I love the fuck out of you. But I'm going into a state now that's going to push your stuff away. Not from a place of being cold, not from a place of not having sympathy, but simply from a place of I'm starting to resent you because I'm taking it all on. And in order for me to show up and love on you the way that I want to love on you, I can't take it on because I have to cultivate my power. And so as I move through this, if this triggers you or is challenging, or if I seem cold, or if I seem a little more withdrawn, know this is why. And I'll shift this. Give me a month. I'll fucking shift this. Because when I realize it, I go in, vocalize it, make it real, share it, and bring that truth to the surface. There's so much power in that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm activated. Kick activated.
That's a TED Talk of truth right there. It's true. So I'm curious actually from this perspective, because people might be hearing this and like, oh, fuck yeah. Like, I want that resonance. I want to experience that truth in my relationship, my business, my blah, 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 whatever it is in this aspect of my life. How did that realization occur? You just had this realization. Did it just come up? You said potentially in meditation. Like how did this happen? Was it an accumulation of events, or did it just kind of occur and you're like, got it, gonna do it? And the second part of that, how did you decide, okay, I'm gonna take action from this? Because I think a lot of times we get insights and we're like, oh, I think I think so, but and there's a difference here. There's a different experience that I'm hearing from you. You're like, oh, got it, know it, that's it. Running with it, making it happen. Mm-hmm. How did that kind of occur?
So it's kind of a challenging one to go over because it's definitely vulnerable and definitely not all mine. So I'll have to navigate this in a way that's appropriate. Mm-hmm. My partner's been going through a lot lately, as you know. And just yesterday found out that one of her best friends transitioned. Mm-hmm. Very sad. Out of nowhere. Motorcycle accident. Very sad. I didn't have the capacity to hold her through something like that because I was so drained from the last couple months. And so when I went to bed and she was in my bed and we were just kind of winding down, I felt like shit because a part of me wasn't there with her. I was operating from an empty cup. Yeah. And because my cup was empty, I couldn't give her the energy that I wanted to give her in such a challenging time. And so I started going down this pattern of, okay, well, it's been too much. Obviously, this relationship's draining me. Obviously, this isn't working out. I need to end it. That's where my mind went. Mm-hmm. And then I took a moment of reflection in that moment. And I said to her, she started asking me questions. And I said, listen, I'm not going to act from reaction right now. I'm feeling like pulling away, like running. I'm not going to have a conversation from that reactive state. She honored that and she said, okay, cool. And I said, I'm going to sleep. I'm going to tune in. I'm going to align myself to it. And in the morning when I woke up, I still felt relatively shitty, but I didn't feel that same desire to run. So it's like I let that stimulation come down. I let that activation come down, took space from it. And in that, I found a bit of clarity, which allowed for me to look back on a lot of my past relationships, particularly my last one. And it was this energy of her intensity was too much for me. It was this, so I started feeling into that. And I was like, this is happening again. And because of the work that I do, because of my awareness, I started asking myself questions. And I said, is this really about my partners being too intense, or is this about my inability to block their intensity from my field? And so in that, I went into meditation and I tuned in and I said, I asked my higher guidance. I said, what is this happening for? Why does this keep happening in my relationships? I can end a relationship. That's fine with me. But for me, I'm like, why is this pattern replicating? And as I tuned in and as I asked, there was an invitation, which was, this is the invitation for you to stand in your power and not let all of their stuff accumulate in you so that you don't have capacity. This is an invitation for you to be like, hey, this is your stuff, go handle it. I'm not able to hold you right now. So that I can recharge, so that when something as sad and as challenging as yesterday occurs, I'm full, I'm open. I'm just like, I fucking got you no matter what. Which, don't get me wrong, was what I was still doing, but it was not from a fully present place. Mm-hmm. There was stories and ideas and all this shit running around in the back of my mind. So it came from pausing, not reacting, letting some time settle down, and then ultimately asking for higher guidance, tuning in, taking space and being like, what is this presenting? What is this event presenting to me?
Yes.
What's the invitation here?
Yeah. And clear communication. That was a big piece of what you were sharing. You shared with her last night, when you were in it, this morning, how you're going to move it, just very open about the process, which is care, which is love, which is attention and affection to the person, because you're sharing your experience. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a big piece that's missed when we think about not giving a fuck. Like, not giving a fuck, like, don't care at all about anybody anytime. The reason we put consciously in there is because we also bring forward communication. Mm-hmm. We allow ourselves to not be moved by an emotion and like, I don't give a fuck, and like just move with emotion coming up, like we talked about in different episodes. It's being clear and connected to yourself, to your power, to be able to communicate some of these things to people you care about. You don't just say fuck off to everybody.
No.
You clearly communicate to the ones you care about, and you say, I love you, and I need to love myself more right now. Mm-hmm. I need to show up for me right now. Mm-hmm. Know that I love you. Mm-hmm. And this is what I'm going to do. Mm-hmm. And clearly communicating that. That's amazing, man. Yeah, thank you for diving into that a little bit and sharing.
Of course.
That's such an important piece of this. It's easily missed, though, when you're like, I'm not giving a fuck, so I'm just doing what I want all the time, anytime. That's not it. Mm-hmm. That's not what we're talking about. It's coming from love. It's coming from your truest expression of love and felt sense of love. But you got to fill that fucking cup. You got to make sure we're full. Got to make sure. Mm-hmm. Or else we're just perpetuating a cycle of fear and draining all of our cells, everything in our bodies.
Totally.
So yes, man. Mm-hmm. That's amazing. I love it.
Yeah, and I appreciate that. And it's like we always say, right? These opportunities, these challenges always have codes. There's always codes in the chaos, right? Yeah. When things are going sideways, there's always a code. And that code doesn't always look like what it might be at face value, right? Mm-hmm. We have to keep going deeper and deeper. And for me, I know this is inviting me into my next evolution because, believe it or not, I hold back a lot on what I share and how I feel. A lot of people who know me would probably listen to that and say, well, my goodness, what else do you want to say? But I do. Mm-hmm. I hold back on my expression. And for me, it's been a massive journey with that because my whole life, people told me I was too intense. Mm-hmm. Everybody, my whole life, you're too intense, you're too intense, you're too intense. You got to dim your light. You got to dim your light over and over and over again. And so I still hold back. And so for me, it's very hard to not give a fuck because I'm afraid that I'm going to be perceived as either cold or insensitive or too much, and ultimately validate the stories of being broken and all the stuff that we talk about, right? So for me, this is a massive invitation to showing the fuck up and expressing my truth to my partners, to my friends, to my clients, to our community. Just letting the world know that this is me, this is who I am, this is my truth. And setting boundaries around protecting the sacred nature of my energy and not just giving it away to too many people, too many situations, too many things, you know? And
yeah, and we're going to speak to that is the difference between you and I, the versions we have of not giving a fuck. and how we learn from each other in this. And I learned from you in so many ways, especially through setting boundaries on your own energy and prioritizing yourself, and through that showing up for yourself. And again, prioritization through setting those clear boundaries. I've really learned a lot from you in that. And my version of expression that, or not even expression, just not giving a fuck, really comes in that expression. Like that's been the biggest journey for me. That's what I love to do. And it can be challenging when we're going into whatever version of not giving a fuck it is for us that we're leaning into, whatever code it is, the invitation that Cam mentioned. You probably can find a version of that for yourself right now. I know I can. It can feel like you're alone. It can bring up that experience of, if I do that, if I go into my power, if I own my boundaries, if I express my full weirdness, I'm a weird motherfucker. If I express all of that, what will my friends think? What will my family think? What will this? And you can feel isolated, and you can
Very
feel
much so.
distant from community, distant from the people around you. And yeah, that's what I think stops us a lot of the times. But the beautiful thing in that is, yeah, that might happen. We're not saying that won't happen. That might happen, sure.
Probably will.
Probably will. You're going to trigger some people. You're probably going to distance yourself from people.
Yeah.
But those aren't your people. The people that you really will resonate with, grow from, develop with, expand with, and find your truth together, surface in your full expression, in your full truth. That's how Cam and I found each other.
Totally.
That's how we've built community here. That's how we continue to connect with humans, is us finding that, digging that, and bringing our truth forward more. And many times we weren't aligned with people around us, and it just naturally kind of pushes the people away. But the people that we're with now, our community now,
Beautiful.
the spaces we're in are amazing. We get so weird in these containers. And as a community, as a collective, we all understand whenever there's boundaries set. We all understand to honor ourselves.
Yeah.
And we all can ask for support to each other. We can all be very clear on our truth. I think that's a big piece of this, is noticing, yes, you might go through a time of isolation. You might go through a time of pushing people away. But on the other side of that, it's fucking worth it.
So much liberation.
Yeah.
So much power, so much freedom. And you've invited me so much into the expression of dance, the expression of play, the expression of being more goofy, more open, more intimate. And, I think it's very important to realize that our truth evolves, our truth shifts. There's so many different aspects of our truth that we need to uncover within ourselves. And as you do that, and as you bring them to the surface, you are going to lose people. It's as simple as that. When I decided to stop drinking, for instance, I lost probably 90% of my friends. Why? They said it was because I wasn't as fun, but let's get real. I'm still a pretty fun dude. It was because every time I said no to a drink when we were out, it made them question why they were getting so fucked up. And so they wanted to push that away. They didn't want that in their lives because it triggered something within them. And so as you start acting from your truth, as you start leaning in, you're inevitably going to lose people. Like Ryan's saying, if you want to stay at the bar, you want to keep drinking, you want to keep living the same life, doing the same shit, then yeah, keep living for them. Or express yourself and find out who your fucking real people are. And find out who's really in your corner. Because Ryan and I trigger each other. We do. It happens. What do? We talk about it. This is my truth. This was my understanding. Okay, here's where we were misaligned. How can we act different next time? We move through it. There's conscious communication. That's consciously not giving a fuck. That's being like, I'm going to do this, might trigger Cam, or I'm going to do this, might trigger Ryan, but it's from my heart, it's from my truth, and I know that we'll be able to work it out. I know we'll be able to move through it. That's freedom. That's true expression, right? And I think that's where we want to live from. We don't want to live from these limited places of acting how our partners want us to act, acting how our coworkers want us to act, acting how our social circles want us to act, acting how social media wants us to act. All of these rules, these guidelines, these different boxes that we're put in, it's time to shatter that shit and act from our truth.
Yes.
Our voice.
Yes. A good way to start doing this, I feel, and I've gone through myself, is noticing where the masks are that you put on. What are those masks and where do you put them on? How many do you have? Do you have one for your role at your business? Do you have a mask of masculinity? I know that was one I wore for a while. Do you have a mask that you have when you're around your family? Do you have a mask you go with your partner? Do you have a mask when you go to the gym? Do you have a mask? How many places do you put on masks, social media, that you aren't fully you and you're behind a persona and you're putting on that experience that people want to see? How often are you doing that? Be brutally honest with yourself and check in with that. I know for me, when I first started diving into that, it was really confronting. I recognized, wow, I'm almost never not wearing a mask. The only place I wasn't, when I was in my bed alone at home. Everywhere else, I had a mask. That I could present myself in a certain way to get a certain thing, so somebody could see me or accept me, so I can make everybody happy around me, whatever it was. Always. When I really looked at the truth of the situation, I was always fucking wearing a mask. And that's confronting. And it gets you closer to your truth. It's not to say you're going to change in an instant, like, no more masks, I'm done. Yay. But it allows you to see what's going on. It allows you to really start tapping into that truth. And I think that it's a beautiful tool to start bringing in to just recognize when that's happening, to get closer to the not giving a fuck and noticing when are you not wearing a mask. See if you can do that a little bit more. See if you can bring that in just a little bit more into your life and start incrementally changing the situation of a bunch of masks to kind of tossing some of those out and bringing some of that experience of full expression in on a more regular basis. Sounds very theoretical, but it's beautiful in practice. And it's very confronting. It's
very
a great
confronting
challenge.
and a great challenge. And I'm curious to hear your opinion on this. Because it's interesting, because there's this element of approachability or relatability that can get really mixed up in this. And I think a lot of people get lost in these concepts, at least I know I have in the past, of, well, I have to wear this mask because it pays the bills. Or I have to wear this mask because my parents can't see the truth because it would crush them. You know, whatever that is. There's this concept of I need to be relatable to people. I think it's very important to really question how relatable you want to be to certain people and if that's the right circumstance for you to be in. Because I think a lot of times we put these masks on to be successful in our business, but truly down the road we don't find happiness because our business is then built on a false sense of identity.
Yes.
And so even though you might be relatable, you're not acting from your truth. Now, there is one thing that comes up for me, and I remember in the book, A Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, she had a really good point where she said, depending on the client that I'm talking to, I'm not going to sit down and look at them and say, the angels told me X.
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to lose that person if they don't believe in angels. So I think there is an element of knowing your audience that's very important in life, but select the right audiences. With the Marianne Williamson example, maybe some clients she can't say angels to, but she could say intuition. That's still somebody that's looking to improve. That's still somebody that's looking to heal. She's just changing the language. And there's a very, very important distinction here to be had, I think, because we can really justify putting ourselves in very shitty circumstances and not acting from our truth for work, paychecks, whatever. But really, it doesn't serve us to the way that we think. And if we were to find another environment where we could be much more in our truth, we would find more abundance, we would find more freedom, and we would ultimately find more success that brought us pleasure, that brought us joy, because it would be based on a foundation of who you really are.
Yes.
So I think that's an important one to bring up.
It is, yeah, because it's such a big piece of the reality of human experiences. We're going to have to change based on environment. Adaptability is a skill, yes. To be able to do that is beautiful. And I love what you're saying. Adaptability is amazing, but why not start creating environments where you don't have to adapt as much? Where you just get to be in that environment. And I think the example that we have is we've been adaptable our whole lives, and kind of you can navigate all these different environments, so many different environments, different things, and showing up for many different people. But now the environments are pretty consistent that we put ourselves in. Like, okay, I can just show up as fully me. And that might not be something you have right now in this moment. But what Cam's saying, which is beautiful, and what we said at the beginning, is as long as you're showing up from your love, your true love for yourself, that's it. You're starting in that truth. You're moving in that truth. You might have to change up the languaging a little bit at your business than how you can talk with your best friend. You might have to. That's fine. But start noticing where you're holding back. Start noticing where you're allowing yourself. And start bringing that in, the allowance more. See if you can bring that in a little bit. And it's not so black and white, as I said, of mask, no mask. There is the in-between. There is the kind of faded experience where you're in between there and you're allowing yourself a bit more, but you're like, oh, I still have to kind of act a certain way because I still have to wear this button-up shirt, but I can now do this. That's fucking beautiful. Fucking beautiful. Start bringing in that love. Start cultivating that true sense of self-love, to feel that truth, to feel that not giving a fuck, and allow it to come through. So I love that.
Hell yeah, amazing. That's a very well-rounded approach. I love it so much. And to add to what Ryan said about asking yourself how many masks you wear, which is a very good practice. I've done it. Yeah. In writing my book, I actually have done it. It's a big part of my book is going over the different masks I've wore and how they kept me safe. And ask yourself the question, how much of your life is being lived for other people? How much of your life is being lived for other people? Because if most of your life is being lived for other people, which for me was pretty much most of my years until I was about 33, you're not living from your truth. You're living from somebody else's truth.
And you're not living your life.
Totally. You're living somebody else's life. And it comes down to the business model as well. Why both of us are entrepreneurs is we want to build our dreams. We don't want to build somebody else's dream. And if we're tailoring who we are so that we can build somebody else's dream, it's just constantly pulling us out of who we truly are and the magic that we have to bring. And here's the reality. You all have fucking magic to bring to this world. You all do. And everybody has this concept, this idea that it has to look like you're Tony Robbins or that you're Bill Gates. Oh, I can't believe I just said Bill Gates' name. Steve Jobs, any of these people. There's this idea that mass amounts of success mean an effective mission. That's bullshit. Yes, that comes and that is beautiful for some people, but for others, having a small community is what they're here to do. Having a few people that they guide through life is what other people are supposed to do. Having a family that you're raising with new values that's contributing to ripples in the world is a beautiful mission. There's so many different avenues that we can take with this and what your full expression and your truth looks like, but just know that you have fucking magic inside of you and it doesn't have to look conventional. So find out what that truth is. Find out what your true essence is and live from that as much as you can. because you will never regret that. Never. It's impossible.
Fuck yeah. So to bring both of these invitations to something clear and concise.
Please.
Because we both have a lot of energy around this and I love it. But you may be like, okay, I want to do this. Like, how do I drop into it? Just ask yourself the question, who am I with a mask? And ask yourself a question, who am I when nobody else is around? Could you add on to that from this last question that you were saying?
I would just say, what magic am I here to share with the world?
Boom. Boom. Beautiful invitations. Write them out. Really check in with them.
Mm-hmm.
These are practices that Cam and I have done. These are things we constantly check in on.
Totally.
So it's not that we're just throwing these out there. These are things we've done before. So this episode ended up turning into a session of passion and 3 invitations for you to drop into.
Rightfully so.
As it should.
We plan these a little bit, and at the same time, we let our energy guide us. And to be honest, we're here to ignite you. Mm-hmm. And speaking from your truth is an essential part of your ignition. If you do not know your truth, it's going to be very hard to ignite your soul, because your soul only knows truth. Your soul only knows alignment. So dive in, ask yourself these questions. Think about the masks. Think about who you're living your life for. All these questions and these things that Ryan just brought up. Like, use those questions, use those tools, inquire on this. It's so important to live your life from consciously not giving a fuck outside of your truth.
Oof. Stay lit.
Stay lit, crew.